Well, howdy, folks, and good morning. It's been a while since I've taken you guys on a ride along, so I thought I would take you on this one. Just got this in. It's a rush case. The attorney needed us to go out this morning, so I'm going to hit the road, and when I'm on the road, I will let you know what's going on. Okay, folks, we are on the road. This one came in as a rush case. I wish I had a little more time to do some pre-surveillance and gather some intel, but I didn't. It was a rush. They needed me out right away. I'll tell you a little bit about the case. This is a very unique case. It is a rush one that we're going out on, and generally on rush cases, you will want to charge a premium for that case to your client. It's not good to just go out on a rush on your regular rates. Generally, from my experience, rush cases present some kind of problem along the way. There's something that you just don't know about. There's something that's going to happen or occur that you cannot predict. And that's with any case, but with rush cases, that generally is the rule, not the exception, to be sure. So I always charge a premium. Some people charge 1.5 times the rate. Some people charge double their rate for a premium on a rush, and some will just have a rush fee. You know, they charge X amount per hour plus whatever, $500 or $1,000 a day premium on it. So make sure when you're looking at all your numbers and you're looking at your fees and you're figuring out what to charge people, you think about rush cases and those special scenarios. And this one even has another special caveat to it. So this case is a insurance case, but it's a very unique insurance case. Most of the insurance cases we get are things like workers' comp, slip and fall, that kind of stuff. But this individual happened to be self-employed, and he came from another state, and he was self-employed, and then he got injured on the job, and he filed a claim against his insurance company for his injury, which isn't that terribly different than anybody else if they got injured on the job. But he injured himself, filed his claim, and then he kind of disappeared off the grid. And he not only got injured and filed this claim, he also filed for Social Security. He just hit the big number there that he was eligible to retire. And he sold his business as well. So it's all a little bit fishy. We believe we've located him here in Colorado. He's living with some relatives, which is another thing that's kind of fishy as well. And there's a lot of other unique things about it that I'll get into a little later when we get there. But right now we are probably about 30 minutes out right now. So I'll catch up with you when we get on scene, okay? Okay, folks, we are on scene. I did a preliminary drive-through of the area. I did not see any known associated vehicles, and it's kind of hard to tell exactly where I need to park for this particular case. So I'm going to go out on foot surveillance, and I'm going to walk through and take a closer look at where the actual residence is and see if I can find any known associated vehicles. So I'll be right back. Okay, folks, well, that was a little bit of a trek for me to figure things out. In this particular case, we believe the subject is living in a condo with a relative here, and I was able to identify a possible associated vehicle with the residence, and I did identify also a possible place where I can park and I can watch for this case. Now, this is unique because it's a very, very, very large upscale condo association sitting on a golf course, so there is a lot of foot activity, which is nice, which means that if I need to go out on foot surveillance, I can. I won't be noticed by too many people outside of getting in and out of my vehicle a lot, but when I've got to get out and walk around in the morning and identify things, it's not too bad. In this place that I've located, I believe I'll be able to see the stairs from where the subject or anybody living at the residence will walk down. These are multi-level units, and the main door is on the upper level. So I'll be able to see that, and there's a small balcony up there if he was to come out and have a cigarette or sit down or do anything. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get in position where I can set up and I can watch this, and I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, folks, we are all set up. We found a pretty nice little place here. It is a beautiful Colorado day. low 50s right now, which sounds kind of cool. But I'll tell you what, if you're sitting in one of these tin cans for a long time in full sun, if it's 50 degrees outside, it will get up to 110, 120 pretty darn quick inside the vehicle. Luckily for me, I am in a shaded area for right now. It'll probably change as the day progresses, and we do expect a high in the mid to upper 80s or low 90s today, so it's definitely going to warm up still. I do have eyes on the residence, or at least on a portion of the residence. This case, like I said, is very unique. The individual that we are looking for was in another state. He had a business of his own. He got injured on his business and he filed a claim against his insurance company, and then he subsequently sold his business and filed for Social Security retirement, which is all a little bit suspicious. But then he also kind of dropped off the radar, and they just found out that he may be living here with a family member at this residence in Colorado. And so it all starts to look a little suspicious. Our biggest job here, our biggest part of the assignment, is just to confirm whether or not he is or is not here, and potentially get a little bit of video, or at least get eyes on him and see how he is presenting. Does he look like he may have injuries? The injuries are very, very unique. In most injury cases, we're going to have a lot of detail as to how the injured party got injured and what type of injury they have. Is it lower back? Is it an arm? Is it, were they struck by something in the head? Something like that. This one, they don't really have a lot of details. It's multiple injuries, but they don't have any details as far as body parts or anything at this time. So there's not a whole lot to look at. So when you start to look at it like that and you combine everything, it just gets to looking a little bit suspicious. And then to top it off, the person that he may be living with, the relative that he may be living with, is a high net worth, high profile individual. And that kind of further complicates things. And I had mentioned earlier, on these rush cases, I always have a premium that I put on it. I charge additional for these cases, and most people do. I always suggest that you do at least 1.5 times or 2 times your regular rate. But on high net worth or high profile cases, we also have a premium, and that goes on top of that as well. And that's because of the complications of it. Now, this one, we're just out and we're trying to identify the individual, but I still charge that. If we can find that he is here, well, chances are we're going to end up with multiple days of surveillance that we get to work on the subject as well. And when we go out and do that, of course, I'm going to be asking for multiple investigators on that. So I got a little bit of activity over there. I'm going to just sit here and check it out, and I'll let you know if there's anything interesting. Okay, well, the activity that I saw was not my subject. However, it was the subject's relative that we believe lived here. So we were able to confirm that the relative is residing here. And we were fairly certain the relative did reside here because the relative is listed as one of the owners. Now, I have a very, very, very small window that I can look out. I'm all blacked out here. I have my blackouts up in my side windows. I have my sunscreen up in the front windshield. So I'm blacked out. Nobody's going to be able to see in, but I have a very, very small window that I can peek out through over my sunscreen off to the corner, where I can see a little bit of activity if it should happen to present itself. So I need to be able to quickly get my camera up and shoot video whenever there is activity. So for that particular reason, I do have it plugged into my DC to AC converter, and as you can tell right there with the red blinking light, it is charging. It is on all the time. So I always just leave my camera open like this, and then I can leave it in my lap, and then it's always on, it's always ready, it's always fully charged, and it can stay plugged into this thing for days without it draining, because it's not very much of a drain. It's not like I'm running a laptop off out of it. The only thing I'm doing is plugging it into the camera. But that is a huge tip there. When you need to move quickly and get your camera up, and you need to be able to shoot that video right away, that's a good way to do it. A lot of the cameras today, with the internal memory, there is just a slight delay. Could be anywhere from a second to 3 or 4 seconds from the time you flip that screen open before you're able to record. And having no delay whatsoever really helps. Also, having it plugged in makes the screen a little bit brighter. Now, you may need to adjust that if you're sitting out in the dark of night. You don't want a big Klieg light coming on with your camera turned on inside your vehicle, but on days like this where it's fairly bright outside, I like to have as bright of a screen as I can so I can see what I'm actually videotaping. Okay, folks, we are about 6 hours into this thing, and well, I've seen a lot of activity from our subject's relative, but I have not seen our subject of interest yet. But that's the way these things go. Sometimes we got a couple more hours to put in. I did a video not too long ago. I was just sitting here thinking about it, on the demands of being a PI, the demands of a private investigator. And in that video, it really talked about the demands from the workload process, especially if you do surveillance. There's a lot of ebbs and flows in the business, and sometimes it seems like it's feast or famine all the time. But as I'm sitting out here, I understand some of the other demands, or I'm reminded of some of the other demands of being a surveillance private investigator. When I had first arrived here, the spot that I am in, it was the spot that I'm still in right now. It was mostly shaded, and it was a nice spot. But when you know it, the shade is gone. I've been sitting in full sun for a while, and I have just been absolutely drenched. I just wiped myself off here just a little bit ago. I've just been absolutely drenched in sweat. I've got my fan and other things to help keep me cool, but it's still extremely difficult. It's probably about 75 degrees, I would guess, outside right now. But in my car, it's 100 or more. It's plenty warm. It's brutal. And then when I look off in the distance, I see approaching storm clouds. That will be very nice late this afternoon when they get here, but they're probably not going to provide any relief for me right now. And if you do a lot of surveillance, this is just one of the hazards, I guess, of the profession. You are going to have a lot of brutal times. There is a lot of pressure. Sitting here in the sun, not taking off, not starting your car all the time, not running your air conditioner. And I am blacked out, which is good. Nobody's going to be able to see me inside. You can see a little bit of my raggedy curtain that I have back there. But trust me, that's okay. If you were back behind my car and you looked in, all you would see is black. You wouldn't be able to see in. And I've got my sunscreen in, and I've got my window coverings, my blackouts on both the left and the right. And then dark tinting, of course, on all of my windows. So I'm not too worried about being made here, but man, it is brutal just sitting here all day long staring at one thing. But that's what we have to do. That's just part of the job. Well, folks, we are on the move. Just shortly after my last update, literally 30-45 seconds after that, I saw the vehicle, or a vehicle, potentially associated with our subject exiting the area. So I started mobile surveillance. Not 100% sure if our subject is in it or not. This vehicle is not registered to our subject. This vehicle is registered to a family member. But we are following the vehicle, and it's been an interesting follow, to be sure. No crazy driving, no speeding, anything like that. But the vehicle that we're following is a typical vehicle. It's almost identical to the vehicle that I drive. It is a silver or gray crossover SUV, and there are so many of those out here on the road. In fact, for a little bit there was 4 or 5 vehicles almost identical, including mine, all in a row, plus other vehicles too. And the nice thing with this one is the vehicle that I'm following has a really, really small white sticker on the back, with just on the back window, with just a couple of words on it, but it makes it very easily identifiable at a distance. For instance, we just went through an intersection, and now the vehicle is several vehicles in front of me, but I'm able to get off to one side or another and still identify which vehicle is the vehicle that I am following. And out here in all this rural area, not really rural, but rural kind of, going between small town and small town up here in the foothills, or near the foothills in Colorado, there are lots of roundabouts, and those are kind of a lifesaver for me anyway, because they slow people down. I get to get a good eye on my subject, even if they are several vehicles in front. And if I get too close to my subject, a lot of times when I get in a roundabout, I'll just go around a circle and then come back in, and that might put another car or two between us, because on the route that we're taking right now, it's leading us into a metropolitan area, and that is good and bad. If I have some distance, I could lose them, but chances are when I get up here, I will be able to speed up and catch up. Anyway, we're on the move, and I will let you know when we get to wherever we are going. Well, folks, that was quite the fun follow. We did successfully follow our subject along with our subject's relative, who was driving the vehicle, to another residence. We were able to confirm that our subject is residing there, which that was our primary objective. I did get hold of the client and let them know they are going to be, the client is the attorney for the insurance firm, so he's legal counsel to the insurance firm, and they're going to be talking with their claims adjuster and things like that, and see if they want to get some more surveillance done, and they probably will. They indicated that they would probably want some more, and I did let them know, just giving all the circumstances, it would be best if we utilize 2 investigators, 2 operatives on any further surveillance, just given a lot of the difficulties. We have not seen any registered vehicles to our subject, and we do have a vehicle that is registered to our subject. However, it appears it is registered out of state, and it appears by the registration information that we have that it may have expired several months ago, about the time all of this stuff, when the claim came up and things like that. So he may or may not have the vehicle. Folks, as I'm driving back to the office and I'm thinking a little bit about this case, I wanted to let you know about the route that we took, and this is just something that's good to keep in the back of your mind when you're out on these surveillances. The location where they went, if you were not from that particular area and going to that particular spot, you would find that the route would be suspicious. A lot of people would think it's suspicious. It is what we would call a very circuitous route. However, in looking at it from the hindsight standpoint, it is the path of least resistance, if you will. No highways, no freeways, no interstates, no high traffic areas. And that is what a lot of people out here in the rural areas prefer to drive. Even if they're in the mountain areas or in the foothills, as this one is, people tend to want to drive without going into all the traffic. They could have easily gotten on a highway, maybe got there a minute or 2 or 3 earlier. There are multiple highways that they could have gotten onto, but they took somewhat seemed like back roads. But watching all of the traffic, there was a lot of traffic going between the towns on those back roads. And I think I had mentioned one of the things too was a lot of roundabouts along the way. And that's really key, at least in this neck of the woods. That can be really key to the type of road that it's in. If they have gone through the trouble to put in the infrastructure for roundabouts, that usually indicates that it is a highly trafficked route. We tend to put in a lot of roundabouts out here versus stoplights or just stop sign intersections, because it takes care of a lot of the major thoroughfares that aren't freeway speed. Now, all these roads were 40, 45, 50 mile an hour roads. They weren't high speed roads, to be sure, but you can get from point A to point B without making any stops along the way because of those roundabouts. So that's something to keep in mind when you're following somebody. If they take that circuitous route, if they're out there going left and right and all these back roads and things like that, it may not necessarily be suspicious. Now, if I'm teaching somebody how to do counter surveillance maneuvers, I'm going to tell them, take routes like that, taking lefts and rights. But They were not driving through neighborhoods and going around blocks or anything like that. They were obviously going to where they ended up. It just made perfectly good sense once we got to that location of the route that they took. And it made sense in my mind that you would take that if you were, like me and a lot of us out here, we don't want to get in the hubbub of all the traffic during the day when we're just going somewhere, just going to go to a store and get something, or just going to go to a residence and say hi or have lunch. In this case, it looked like they were probably going to have lunch with somebody. So just wanted to drop that in, and I'll see you on the next video.